Five Nights at Freddy's is a franchise with over a decade's worth of content, spanning countless games, books, and now a movie. There's a reason that no matter whose timeline you watch, they all look different. Making a FNaF timeline is not easy. There are so many ways you can interpret this story, and this is mine. So let's start at the beginning. Back in the 70s, a company called Fazbear Entertainment got its start by creating different props and mascot costumes for carnivals, and specifically for something called the Fall Fest. The Fall Fest featured various mascot characters, such as a bird, an elephant, and the most popular of all, Fredbear and Bonnie. These specific mascot costumes were so popular, Fazbear Entertainment opened a dedicated restaurant for them called Fredbear's Family Diner, featuring the same Fredbear and Bonnie mascot costumes from the Fall Fest. What Fazbear Entertainment didn't account for, though, was one of their animatronics from the Fall Fest going rogue, ending in a giant fire, with most of everything from the Fall Fest being destroyed. The specifics about the animatronic that went rogue and the fire are unknown and will likely be revealed next year in FNAF's next big release. Although we don't know much about how this fire occurred, we do know that after the fire, Fazbear Entertainment started phasing out of the mascot costume era. They needed something new. The two men who helped found Fazbear Entertainment, William Afton and Henry Emily, stepped up to the plate. William Afton was mostly the businessman of the two, handling all of the money, while Henry was the more creative one, with him being in charge of building most of the animatronics and props for the company. With the Fall Fest era of the company coming to a close, they were only left with Fredbear's Family Diner, the standalone restaurant created for the Fredbear and Bonnie characters. In order to replace the mascot versions of Fredbear and Bonnie, Henry went to work on new versions of the characters, eventually creating the new Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, the same characters but with new designs and new suits. Henry called them Springlock suits. These suits are able to double as both an animatronic and a suit that the employees could wear. To switch the suit from animatronic mode to suit mode, the employees could use a hand crank to pull back the animatronic parts, leaving room for them to cleanse. The springs that were helping to hold back those animatronic parts were very sensitive though, and with even a little bit of moisture, the spring locks could potentially snap shut, crushing and killing whoever was inside. But if that ended up happening, Fazbear Entertainment had some common sense procedures set in place.
Hey, this is spring locks cover up for short wear head. Please try to maneuver away from possibly an area with warm bleeding out. That's not a rule because
Fredbear's Family Diner ended up being super successful for William and Henry, so much so that other companies tried replicating it. Another company proceeded to rip off Fazbear Entertainment's old mascot characters by creating their own animatronic versions of them. The leader of the group was Ned Bear, a direct copy of Fredbear, followed by a hippo, an elephant, and a frog, all characters from the Fall Fest, and all with slightly different designs to avoid copyright issues. But while the rival company was able to replicate the designs, they could not replicate Henry's state-of-the-art technology. Their robots were poorly made and had to have giant batteries with exposed wires on stage with them. Naturally, the rival company failed and ended up being bought out by Fazbear Entertainment. With all of the success from Fredbear's Family Diner, William and Henry decided to branch out and create more characters for a new restaurant. In 1983, William and Henry opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, featuring Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. With the opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Fazbear Entertainment was experiencing success like they've never seen before. But with two restaurants now open at the same time, more success also meant more work for William and Henry. The duo were so wrapped up in work that they started neglecting their own families. William was the father of 3 kids, the eldest, Michael, the crying child, and Elizabeth. The crying child has yet to have a 100% confirmed name, so for this video, he will just be called the crying child. Meanwhile, Henry had 1 kid, a daughter named Charlie. The business partners spent most of their days working, so they both created different ways of taking care of their kids. Henry was the robotics genius, so he used his talents to create a new animatronic to watch Charlie for him. It was called the security puppet. This animatronic would sit by the door of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and make sure that Charlie wasn't able to leave the building. This made it so Charlie could play at the restaurant while Henry worked, without Henry having to worry about her leaving the building or getting kidnapped. The robot was linked directly to a green bracelet that Charlie was wearing. If Charlie, wearing the green bracelet, tried leaving the building, the security puppet would spring into action. William, on the other hand, was the businessman of the company. He cared more about making money, but also saving money. Naturally, he decided to just force his eldest son, Michael, to babysit while he was at work. Michael was mostly in charge of babysitting the crying child. The crying child didn't have many friends, but he did have a close relationship with his plushies. These plushies were of characters from his favorite show, Fredbear and Friends, Fazbear Entertainment's newest cartoon, featuring Fredbear, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. The crying child's favorite character, though, was Fredbear. He especially loved his Fredbear plushie. Although he loved the plushie version of the characters, the animatronics would soon become a different story. One day, while visiting Fredbear's family diner, the crying child saw something that would scar him for the rest of his life. While wandering the restaurant, he walked by the employees' only room, where an employee accidentally left the door open. Inside the room was his father, William Afton, helping another employee into a spring Bonnie suit. But through the eyes of the crying child, this looked like someone was literally being stuffed into an animatronic suit. The crying child was so educated on how the mascot characters worked, so seeing a human be put inside of one terrified him. When a child experiences something traumatic, their brain naturally tries finding ways to deal with that trauma. The crying child's way of dealing with his trauma was by creating an imaginary friend. This imaginary friend took the form of the object he loved the most, his Fredbear plushie. His new imaginary friend, Fredbear, followed him wherever he went, shape-shifting into flowers, hiding behind cars, and in the sewers, with nobody being able to see him except for the crying child. When the crying child was overwhelmed, the plushie would talk to him and try to calm him down. Even when the plushie wasn't around, it was still able to speak to him because it lived in his mind. While the crying child was dealing with the trauma of seeing what he thinks was someone being stuffed into a suit, his brother Michael was only making it worse. Michael knew about what happened with his younger brother and used it against him. Every day while babysitting the crying child, Michael would put on a foxy mask, hide somewhere in the house, and jump scare his little brother.
From the pizzeria to your living room, you no longer have to wait to say your dance with Fredbear and Friends. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central, only on.
Through all of Michael's bullying, the crying child's imaginary friend Fredbear would comfort him and talk him through the situation, saying, "You know he is hiding again. Be careful. Tomorrow is another day." Michael wasn't the only one bullying the crying child, though. The local kids in the neighborhood heard about why the crying child was so scared of the pizzeria, even making up fake rumors related to what the crying child thought he saw there. "You'd better watch out. I hear they come to life at night. And if you die, they hide your body and never tell anyone." But all of this bullying would come to a head on one special day, the crying child's birthday. Ironically, his birthday party was being held at Fredbear's family diner. Because he was so terrified of being at the pizzeria, he hid under the table, not knowing that Michael and his friends were nearby, planning a prank that would go terribly wrong. Make sure you grab your pizza. Fredbear and Spring Body will be ready in 5 minutes. Michael and his friends lifted the crying child up to, quote, give Fredbear a big kiss, and Fredbear bit down on him, leaving his body to go limp. Michael and his friends quickly stopped laughing. Because of Michael's immature behavior, his terrified younger brother paid the ultimate price. Although the crying child was badly hurt, he didn't immediately die. Because of the immense brain damage, he slipped into a coma. After being treated at a hospital, the child was taken home so he could be comfortable, surrounded by his only friends, his plushies. In the crying child's final moments, Michael decides to apologize for what he's done, saying, "Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry." After Michael speaks, the crying child's imaginary friend Fredbear, created out of the trauma he experienced, continues doing what it's done the whole time. It comforts him, saying, "You're broken. We are still your friends. Do you still believe that? I'm still here. I will put you back together." This would be the final thing the crying child hears before he dies. The crying child's spirit would then live on in the Fredbear suit, the thing that took his life. The crying child's death wasn't just an accident. It was directly caused by Michael's recklessness. This is something that Michael could potentially face jail time for, so it needed to be covered up. Since the crying child was being kept at home, no one else knew that he ended up passing away. So William and Michael ended up burying the crying child's body in the middle of the woods where no one would find it. No tombstone, no flowers, just a pile of dirt, an unmarked grave, and a lifetime's worth of guilt that Michael would have to live with. Shortly after the incident, Fredbear's family diner was quickly shut down, and Fredbear was completely wiped from existence. The Fredbear and Friends TV show turned into Freddy and Friends on tour. The Fredbear and Spring Bonnie Springlock suits also ended up being moved into the back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, mainly being used as spare suits if one of the Freddy's animatronics broke down. The death of William Afton's youngest son was a pivotal moment in this story, specifically William Afton's story. This was the first domino to fall. A father losing his son is a traumatic situation, and while any other father would take time to grieve, be sad, and properly deal with such a big loss, William Afton took a different route. Afton definitely was upset about his son dying, but it wasn't because he felt bad for his son. It was because it was embarrassing to him. William Afton was a narcissist. He had little to no empathy. All he cared about was work and comparing himself to his business partner, Henry. Henry had a wife, a kid, and a talent for robotics that Afton was utterly jealous of. The death of the crying child sent Afton over the edge because while Henry's family was still perfect, his was now broken. Henry and William had different ways of taking care of their kids, and while Afton employing his eldest son failed, Henry's security puppet succeeded. Henry's daughter, Charlie, lived on. Afton had a hard time dealing with this feeling of embarrassment. He started becoming an alcoholic, frequently visiting the local bar called Junior's. One night, though, after drinking a little too much and getting kicked out of the bar, he decided that he was going to settle the score with Henry. Afton, drunk and filled with rage, drove from the bar to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where he knew Charlie was being watched over by Henry's security puppet. Afton planned on risking everything to kill Henry's daughter, Charlie. He didn't care if he got caught, and he didn't care if he went to prison. Charlie was standing outside by herself. It turned out that some bullies were able to trap the security puppet in its box and lock Charlie outside the building, giving Afton the perfect opportunity to kill Charlie outside of the pizzeria. The security puppet was eventually able to escape its box and went looking for Charlie. As Afton sped away, the puppet noticed that Charlie was outside in the pouring rain. It then did what it was programmed to do and went to protect her. But as the puppet got closer to Charlie's body, the rain started making it short-circuit. was forced to crawl its way over to her until the rain got to be too much and the puppet shut down right next to Charlie's body. While Charlie and the puppet lay lifeless next to each other, Afton was speeding home, driving right past where he buried his son and the bar he got kicked out of. When Afton got home, he was met with his wife sitting in the living room watching TV and Michael in his bedroom. Afton was a drunk and abusive father and fully blamed Michael for what happened to his youngest son. Mrs. Afton tells him to leave Michael alone because he's had a tough day, but Afton doesn't listen. He goes over to Michael's room and pounds on the door, only for the door to be locked. He then makes his way around the house to try and find a way in from the outside, but once he gets to Michael's bedroom window, he notices that it's broken. Michael is gone. Michael was so upset by what he did to his brother that he would sometimes see visions of Fredbear appear and disappear. Tonight, Fredbear appeared outside his bedroom window, and it almost felt like his brother was calling out to him from beyond the grave. This would happen frequently, and every time it did, Michael would run to the spot where they buried his younger brother, only to find that nothing had changed. His younger brother was still gone and buried in the ground. Afton knew Michael did this often, saying, "Ran off to that place again. He will be sorry when he gets back." The guilt of killing his younger brother haunted Michael in his real life, but also in his dreams. Michael would constantly have nightmares about the animatronic that took his brother's life. These were the exact same nightmares his younger brother used to have every night, now passed on to him. After the death of Charlie, Fazbear Entertainment tried their best at covering it up. Fortunately for them and for William, the crime was committed outside, where no one was around to witness it. William was able to get away with everything, while Fazbear Entertainment never spoke of the incident again. The security puppet was quickly moved to the back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where bodysuits resided. But something was different about the security puppet. Dark tears now appeared on the mask of the animatronic. Dark tears that weren't there before. This is something that Afton quickly noticed the next day when he went into work. He'd heard about what happened moments after he sped off. He knew the security puppet was found laying next to Charlie's body. So does that mean Charlie's soul now resided in the puppet? William definitely noticed that the puppet looked different. Almost like it was haunted. Almost like it was thinking. Other employees would eventually notice the same thing.
I'll be honest, I don't know why that's not the same. Nobody's thinking.
After realizing the security puppet may be possessed by the spirit of Charlie, Afton went back and looked at the crying child's Fredbear plushie, only to find that it also seemed to be haunted. The crying child feared for his life every single day, and that plushie was something he was able to cry and pour his agony into. Afton believed that this is what caused the plushie to appear haunted. It wasn't made alive by the spirit of his son, it was made alive by the agony and fear his son poured into it. Afton quickly became obsessed with the concept of haunted objects, and more specifically, the power of human emotion. He needed to find out if this is something he could take advantage of. Afton then used all of his money he made from Fredbear's and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to build a giant underground facility directly under his house. It was here that he would try to recreate what happened with his son, to recreate the fear and agony he experienced. In order to do this, Afton didn't take any chances. He needed to replicate exactly what his son went through every day. In order to do this, Afton built a replica of his house underground, along with his son's daily walk to Fredbear's family diner. He also built a makeshift bedroom where he could force kids to have the same nightmare every night. Afton would sit in his office watching them on the cameras that could be accessed using the Tax code 1983, the year his son got bit. He also kept the crying child's Fredbear plushie on the desk as a reminder of what he was trying to replicate. In the makeshift bedroom, there were dummy animatronics that wheeled down the hallway. But the kids wouldn't see them as just blank dummies on wheels. Afton would pump hallucinogenic gas into the room to get the kids to think that what they were seeing was a monster. These nightmare gas canisters were being stored all throughout his underground facility, and on the bed of this makeshift bedroom was a Freddy plushie, in the hopes that the kids would pour their fear and agony into the plush, like his son did to his plushie. On the other side of the bunker, where Afton recreated the crying child's walk to Fredbear's, he placed a bunch of Fredbear plushies all over the place. These Fredbear plushies had walkie-talkies inside of them. This was Afton's way of recreating his son's imaginary friend that would talk to him wherever he went. Afton would speak to the kids through his walkie-talkies sitting in his private office. After setting up the bunker, Afton was only missing one more thing: the kids to run these experiments on. He needed a way to kidnap and capture kids without being caught, and he had the perfect way to do it.
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone please stay in your seats.
Enter Circus Baby and the Funtime animatronics. These robots were specifically built by Afton to capture kids, featuring Circus Baby, Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora. They feature advanced technology such as parental tracking, voice mimicking, Circus Baby, the star of the group, was even able to make ice cream as a way to lure kids to her. Once the kid got too close, a giant claw would reach out, grab them, and lock them in the animatronics storage tank. Some of the board members from Fazbear Entertainment were suspicious of these new animatronics.
She can dance, she can sing, she's equipped with built-in alien tech for plating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests, she can even dispense ice cream. With all due respect, those are the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
Afton even created a new restaurant for these animatronics called Circus Baby's Pizza World. Elizabeth, William Afton's daughter, was fascinated by Circus Baby. All she wanted to do was play with her, but Afton wouldn't let her. He strictly told her to stay away from the animatronic, but one day she didn't listen. On the opening day of Circus Baby's Pizza World, another domino would fall in Afton's life, and Elizabeth would soon be the victim of his terrible misdeeds.
I can do something special. Did you know that? I can make ice cream, although I only did it once. What a wonderful day, though. I was in a small room with balloons and a few tables. I would always count the children. I'm not sure why. They usually played together in groups of 2 or 3. There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Time to play. Something happened when there was one. I was no longer myself. They were screaming for a moment, but only for a moment.
In an instant, Elizabeth was grabbed by Circus Baby and thrown into her stomach hatch. The sheer force of her being grabbed and thrown into the robot's storage tank was enough to kill her almost instantly. This is something that William wasn't able to test. That was until his daughter became the test. William Afton now lost another one of his kids, but this time it was all his fault. After just one day of being open, Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down. Afton covered up the incident by telling the public that the restaurant shut down due to to gas leaks. But not everyone bought that story. The local newspaper wrote about the incident, saying in other news, the grand opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World has apparently been canceled due to reported gas leaks in the building. Sources close to the establishment questioned the report, saying that strange activity around the area at night suggests something else is to blame. One local is quoted as saying, "Everything just stopped. There was so much excitement built around this place opening, and then they just stopped talking about it." A tenant from across the street claims to have witnessed a large group of cars surrounding the building during the night, and large pieces of equipment being taken out of the building under tarps. A few weeks later, the building was for sale. There is no comment yet from the local entrepreneur who financed the venture. That local entrepreneur, William Afton, successfully covered up everything. He was able to bring Circus back down into his bunker. But once he got them there, he noticed something was different about Circus Baby. One distinct feature about Circus Baby was her blue eyes. What once was blue eyes now were green, the same color as Elizabeth's. In that moment, he knew that his daughter's soul attached itself to the robot. Her soul lived on in Circus Baby. Afton knew that the way Charlie went on to possess the puppet was sloppy, and it was hard to recreate without getting caught. But what if the kids' bodies were hidden where no one would ever look? What if, just like his daughter, their bodies were stuffed into the animatronics? For Afton, Elizabeth's death quickly went from just inconvenience to a scientific breakthrough. Afton was one step closer to harnessing the power of life itself. But one successful experiment wasn't enough. Just like the fear experiments he built in the bunker, he needed to replicate exactly what happened. He needed to recreate the accident, and he knew exactly how he was going to do it. Using the Funtime animatronics again wasn't an option. Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down, and the public was already getting too suspicious of the animatronics. But he didn't need the Funtime animatronics. He was going to run the experiment himself. On June 26, 1985, William Afton made his way to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. There, he would put on the old spring bodysuit from Fredbear's to lure 5 kids into the back room.
I took a swing with my friend.
Hello. Looking for a friend?
The water's clear, come swim with me.
One by one, Afton killed them and stuffed their bodies into the animatronics. Susie was first, being stuffed into Chica. Gabriel went into Freddy, Jeremy into Bonnie, Fritz into Foxy, and then there was Cassidy, who went into Fredbear, aka Golden Freddy. At this point, Afton had no idea that the crying child spirit was in Golden Freddy, so he didn't think twice about shoving Cassidy in there. The way Afton killed Cassidy, though, was different from the rest. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were just regular animatronics. Afton had no choice but to kill them, then stuff them into the suits. But Golden Freddy wasn't just a regular animatronic, it was a springlock suit. The same springlock suit that took his youngest son's life. Afton was aware of how dangerous the springlocks were. Any bit of moisture or too much movement would cause them to snap shut, slowly killing whoever was inside. So that's exactly what he did to Cassidy. He put him into the suit and watched as the springlocks snapped shut, cementing Cassidy's death as the most brutal of them all. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy weren't the only animatronics sitting in the back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, though. They were joined by the security soul of Henry's daughter, Charlie. Charlie. Once Afton was gone, Charlie jumped into action, almost acting as a guide for their souls, properly giving them life inside of each animatronic. After the incident, the kids were quickly reported missing by their families, and although the security cameras caught Afton luring the kids away, he wasn't able to fully get in trouble. Since he was wearing the Spring Bonnie suit, they were never able to prove it was actually him. Afton also hid the kids' bodies where no one would ever look, so the bodies were never found. Unbelievably, Afton was able to get away with yet another crime. Because of all the bad press that came from the missing children's incident, people stopped coming to the pizzeria. After months of customers no longer showing up, Fazbear Entertainment officially shut down Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Shortly after the pizzeria shut down, Afton decided to pull the Funtime animatronics out of retirement and finally get his underground facility fully operational. He knew he couldn't try opening another Circus Babies restaurant, so he had a new idea.
Due to the massive success and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment. Unlike most entertainment venues, our robotic entertainers are rented out for private parties during the day.
Afton opened Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental. This way he could rent out the Funtime animatronics to local birthday parties, capture kids, and bring them back to his underground bunker to be experimented on. While Afton was running his rental business, Fazbear Entertainment was determined to try opening another pizzeria. In the summer of 1987, Fazbear Entertainment opened the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, this time with brand new versions of their original characters. These were called the toy animatronics, and they were once again built by Henry. Henry was aware of what happened in 1985, and especially of what happened to his daughter, so he was determined to make sure that never happened again. These new toy animatronics were equipped with facial recognition systems that were linked directly to a criminal database. The security puppet was also brought out of retirement, but instead of working security, it sat quietly in the prize corner. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Golden Freddy, and Spring Bonnie were also moved to the new pizzeria, and it's revealed that these animatronics were mostly used for spare parts.
I'm sure you've noticed people sitting in the back of the previous location. We just use them for parts now. The idea is going to just
This means that the haunted metal of the original Freddy's animatronics was now being put into the toy animatronics, causing the toys to also now be possessed. After Afton got away with the first set of murders, he needed to see if the kids' spirits were possessing the animatronics. In order to see for himself, Afton went back to work at the new pizzeria as a daytime security guard. While Afton was working the day shift, Jeremy Fitzgerald was working the night shift. Jeremy worked there for 5 nights, and unfortunately for him, because the kids possessing the animatronics were killed by an adult, they were extremely aggressive to any adult they encountered.
They interact with the kids just fine. So when they encounter adults, they just scare.
Meanwhile, Afton decided to pull the same trick he did at the old Freddy's location, gaining 5 more victims.
Someone used one of the suits. We got his spare in the back. The yellow one. Someone used it.
Afton used the Spring Bonnie suit to pull the same stunt again on 5 more kids. But as he was committing the murders, Charlie from inside the puppet was actively trying to save the kids. She tried enlisting the but it was too late. Afton had already finished what he started. Not only that, him seeing the puppet and Freddy walking around the pizzeria trying to stop him was all the proof he needed that his experiments were successful. The kids he put into the original suits were haunting the animatronics. But there was one problem. Afton knew that the haunted metal of the endoskeletons was the key to everything, but the animatronics were trapped at the pizzeria. There was no way he could bring them back to his underground bunker. He couldn't get to the animatronics if the pizzeria was still open and active, so he needed to find a way to make sure the pizzeria shuts down and fast. Instead of stuffing the new set of victims into the toy animatronics, he decided to leave the kids out in plain sight, scattered throughout the pizzeria. This was a guaranteed way to get the pizzeria shut down. A few hours after Afton committed the murders, Jeremy Fitzgerald showed up for his night shift, unaware of what happened that day.
Want them to just finish your shift. Say for the try to leave the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow. Just the one thing. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the end. Make sure they're recording one, okay?
The next day, during Jeremy's day shift, one of the animatronics bit him in the head. This was infamously known as the bite of 87. Meanwhile, Afton successfully got the pizzeria shut down. The local newspaper wrote about the incident, saying, after being open only a few short weeks, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closing its doors. The new animatronics will be scrapped due to possible malfunctions. However, the original characters are being kept in hopes of a possible reorganization of the company. Since the toy animatronics were now being scrapped, he knew he could get away with taking their endoskeletons. But he also knew that he couldn't risk showing his face at the pizzeria again. So he got his oldest son, Michael, to do the work for him. William was easily able to get Michael to do whatever he wanted. William was abusive and manipulative, while Michael was haunted by the guilt of what he did to his younger brother. Because of this, Michael basically acted as William's puppet. Michael showed up for the night shift at the now-closed Freddy Fazbear's Pizza under a code name, Fred Smith. At the end of his shift, he would successfully steal the toy animatronics endoskeletons for his father, causing him to get fired his first day on the job due to tampering with the animatronics. As it said in the local newspaper, while Fazbear Entertainment scrapped the toy animatronics, the original Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were going to be fixed up and reused. And that's exactly what they did. After the 1987 Freddy's location shut down, they opened yet another location, this time using the exact same building as the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. As you can imagine, this didn't work out great for the business. People already had a bad impression of Fazbear Entertainment, so using the same building that the original murders took place in didn't help business. Customers barely showed up to the new pizzeria, leading it to shut down by the end of 1993. Although this was bad news for Fazbear Entertainment, this was great news for William Afton. Afton was able to acquire the endos of the toy animatronics, but that wasn't enough. He needed all of the haunted endoskeletons, especially the ones in the original animatronics. Once the pizzeria shut down, Afton came up with a plan to steal the endos from the animatronics. Each pizzeria was designed with something called a safe room.
Emergency. Please go to the designated safe room. Every location is filled with one extra room that is not included in the digital. This room is hidden to customers, invisible to animatronics, always on camera.
This room was hidden from guests and invisible to the animatronics. Afton would use this to his advantage, luring each of the animatronics to the safe room and dismantling them one by one. The kids possessing these animatronics were the same kids he lured into the back room all those years ago. He planned to use the same trick to lure the same kids all over again. Once he finished dismantling each animatronic and stealing their endoskeleton, he brought them down to his underground bunker, where he would melt them all down into one liquid substance called Remnant. Not only did Afton rob these kids of their lives, he would use their souls long after they're gone for his own personal gain. By melting down the endos, he successfully created remnant. This substance, containing the spirits of all of the missing children, was silver in color and if kept at the right temperature was malleable. Afton didn't want to risk testing the remnant on himself, so he injected it into the Funtime animatronics. Once he did, the animatronics jumped to life. The experiment had worked. William Afton unlocked the power of life itself. After his successful experiment, he went back to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to collect his old spring Bonnie suit. But once he got there, he was met with the spirits of the 5 missing children, trapping him inside the safe room. Cassidy, the spirit inside Golden Freddy, chased Afton around the room and forced him to get into the spring Bonnie suit. Cassidy was the most vengeful spirit of them all. Being spring-locked in the Fredbear suit was a painful and slow death, and he wanted to make sure that Afton knew what that felt like. At this point, Afton knew how a spirit could live on. As long as he was inside the suit, he knew he'd be back. As Afton laughed, the spring locks snapped shut, forcing him to go through what Cassidy went through. This was an act of revenge by Cassidy, and it wouldn't be the last. Afton was now confined to the safe room of the now shut down Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and because of this, everything in his underground bunker was left abandoned. But even with Afton gone, the rental business continued on its own. All of the Funtime animatronics containing the spirits of the missing children and even his daughter Elizabeth were still being rented out during the day and then brought right back down to the bunker. All the spirits wanted to do was escape, but they were always put back underground. After Afton went missing, his eldest son, Michael, who's been blindly helping his father, remembered what his father told him if he ever went missing. If William wasn't there to finish his work, Michael would do it for him. Afton's underground facility was always off limits to Michael, but since he was now gone, Michael had no choice. He took the elevator down to where his father worked every day. Although Michael was helping out his father by stealing some of the endos from the animatronics back in the day, he never exactly knew what William was doing until he got down into the bunker. Over the several days he visited the bunker, he learned more about what his father was up to. He learned about the massive facility his father built, complete with multiple rooms conducting fear experiments. He learned the truth behind the Funtime animatronics and how they were actually designed to kidnap kids. And he learned through the voice of Baby exactly how his sister died.
A little girl standing by herself, my stomach open, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least not until she stepped closer.
But as the week went on, Baby was conducting a plan of her own, a plan to escape the bunker using Michael's body. Elizabeth was no longer the person Michael remembered her as. She was entirely devoted to her father and would do anything to make him proud of her. At the end of the week, all of the Funtime animatronics endos were scooped out, with this creature containing the spirits of the missing kids and Elizabeth knew they wouldn't be able to escape the bunker looking like an animatronic. They needed a human body to walk around in.
You are in the scooping room now. Funtime Foxy has already been here today. Funtime Freddy has already been here today. Laura has already been here today. Circus Baby has already been here today. I've been out before, but they always let me back. They always let us walk through. There's nowhere for us to hide here. There is nowhere to go when we look like this. But if we looked like you, then we could hide. If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere to go. The scooper only hurts for a moment.
Michael Afton's insides got scooped out and replaced by Ennard, helping all of the souls to escape the facility. With every passing day after this happened, Michael looked more and more like a walking zombie. His skin was starting to turn purple, and people started to notice. Michael's body was no longer a good disguise for Ennard, so Ennard ejected itself from Michael. But because the scooper was also a remnant injector, when Michael Afton was scooped, he was also injected with remnant. The remnant made it so even after Ennard was gone, he was still able to survive. With Michael now back in full control of his body, he had a new mission. Although he did, one way or another, successfully free his sister from the facility, he also learned about all of his father's terrible misdeeds. His loyalty to his father turned to disgust. It was time for him to end all of this.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
Michael would spend years searching for his father with no luck, until a new ad in the local newspaper caught his attention. Someone decided to open something called Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction. Local amusement park is getting ready to scare your socks off with a new attraction based on the unsolved mysteries of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, featuring actual relics from the decades-old pizzeria. This new attraction is guaranteed to bring back your childhood in the worst possible way. As if using the crimes of his father to make a profit wasn't bad enough, they also went back to the old pizzerias and collected any objects they could find to put on display at the attraction. Michael immediately applied for the job with the sole intention of burning the place to the ground. When he got there, he saw the remnants of his past, the shells of all of the animatronics, missing every single one of their endoskeletons. He knew they could only find the shells of the animatronics because he and his father stole their endoskeletons all those years ago, leaving only the shells behind. On day 2 of working at the attraction, he got word that they found a real animatronic.
You're not gonna believe this. We found one. A real one.
This real animatronic ended up being his father, still inside the spring bodysuit he died in decades ago. Even though his father was now in the building with him, he still decided to go through on his plan, all in an effort to end his father once and for all. Michael then rigged the wiring in the building to catch fire, burning the horror attraction to the ground with his father inside. The local newspaper would write about the fire, saying a new local attraction based on an ancient pizzeria chain burned down overnight. Authorities have not ruled out foul play, but at the moment it seems to have been caused by faulty wiring. Although the fire destroyed most of everything in the building, William miraculously was able to survive. William was now free, roaming the outside world along with the souls of missing children, Elizabeth and Charlie, inside the puppet. Since Michael wasn't able to end everything, someone else needed to step in. That someone was Henry Emily, Afton's old business partner and father of Charlie, heard about the fire at Fazbear's Fright, along with the rumors of the various animatronic creatures now roaming the streets. Henry was determined to put an end to all of this.
It's only now that I understand the depth of the depravity of this creature, this monster that I unwillingly helped to create, as if what he'd already done wasn't enough. He found a new way to desecrate, to humiliate and destroy, as if the suffering wasn't enough. The loss of innocence, the loss of everything to so many people, small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now sent to new purpose and used in ways I never thought imaginable. He lured them all back to a familiar place, back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together. Are they still aware of the pilgrimage? It keeps me awake at night. I could make myself sleep, but not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this. He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again. He overpowered them again, and he robbed them of the only thing that they had again. I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
By gathering all of the animatronics in one place and locking them in the same room, he would be able to burn them all to the ground for good, effectively freeing their spirits in the process. In order to do this, Henry created a new restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. He knew that the spirits and William couldn't resist coming back to a new location, even if it was all just a trap. Charlie was different. So Henry knew she wouldn't be as easily fooled. So he created an animatronic called Lefty, standing for Lure, Encapsulate, Fuse, Transport, and Extract, specifically to capture the puppet and bring it to the pizzeria. While trying to find someone that would help him carry out his plan, one person showed up for the job, a person who was also determined to finally end all of this. Michael Afton. Day after day, the animatronics roaming the streets would show up in the alleyway next to the pizzeria. Baby, aka Elizabeth, the souls of the missing children, and the crying child now appearing as Molten Freddy, Charlie and Lefty, and his father, William, all showed up in the background. Michael would then collect each animatronic and throw them into a facility under the pizzeria designed to be a maze with no exits, where the animatronics would roam around without even knowing they were trapped until the end of the week, before they would all be burned to the ground. With all of the souls, including William himself, now in one place, Henry's plan was in motion. As far as Elizabeth and William were concerned, this was a good thing. All of this remnant now in one place was all that they wanted, until Henry stepped in.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do, and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume. Although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. The lust for blood is driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, and somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you, although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am their pity as well. I am their mind. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I know there is peace and perhaps more waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms. No. And then what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest for you and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Henry putting fire to the animatronics may have freed the spirits from the metal of the robots, but some of them still needed help actually moving on into the afterlife. This help would come from Charlie. She helped guide the spirits into the robots. Now she would help them move on. In the world of Five Nights at Freddy's, the way a spirit can move on is by them being put into a happy memory. The memory Charlie chose actually comes from the crying child and the day he got bit. Piece by piece, Charlie put that terrible shattered memory back together, but this time she would change it into a happy memory. Instead of the crying child getting bit on his birthday, Charlie changed it so that all of the missing kids and Charlie would celebrate him, giving him a giant birthday cake. By changing that terrible memory into a happy one and attaching all of the spirits to it, they were able to successfully pass into the afterlife. Like I said, they were all able to move on, except for one. Cassidy, the most vengeful spirit of them all, wasn't done yet. He decided to attach his soul to Williams, making sure that William was unable to move on. By attaching his spirit to Williams, he was able to trap Afton in an endless loop of death. He made Afton relive every one of his terrible misdeeds: the fear experiments, his underground bunker, and the pizzeria where Cassidy was killed. Afton experienced all of this while being attacked and killed over and over again by all of the animatronics from his past. Every time an animatronic would attack him, Cassidy would be there, reminding him that the suffering will never end.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
Cassidy knew that Afton didn't deserve the afterlife. He deserved to pay for what he's done for all eternity. But if you keep up with the franchise, you know that that's not the end of the story. Like I said at the beginning of the video, making a FNaF timeline is not easy, no matter what anyone says. In broad strokes, you can explain the basic motivations and the why of everything. You have to start filling in the blanks yourself. Some people who've helped me fill in the blanks that I'd like to shout out are Right Host for his theory about Cassidy being spring-locked in Golden Freddy. I think that makes a lot of sense and is really satisfying for the narrative. Also, I'd like to shout out MatPat for his theory about Midnight Motorist. After trying to figure that minigame out for years, I think your explanation makes the most sense. It's important for me to say that no one, except for Scott Cawthon himself, knows the exact story he was trying to tell. So please make sure to watch other people's timelines as well and to come to your own conclusion on everything. And when the time is right, I'll be back to tackle the newer games in this franchise. Until then, make sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching.